Welcome to the next breakthrough with Sean Campbell. Today's guest is Sean Callanan. He's worked with sports organizations globally, leveraging their digital fan bases using digital to dollars process to drive revenue. He's a leading sports podcaster with over 400 episodes of his own podcast called Sports Geek. And he's applying his geek skills to deliver more for fans using AI. And you can also subscribe to his regular Sports Geek Rapid Rundown. So thank you, Sean, for joining today, and I really appreciate you spending the time with me.
Not a problem at all. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, we met recently at an AI event, just actually down
Yep.
the road from the house here. Obviously, we share the same name and the same initials, in fact. So I thought, let's see who this guy is. What's he all about? And obviously, looking behind you, you've got lots of sports memorabilia, and
Yep.
that's the area that you're in. Can you tell the audience here where you intersect with kind of marketing and sports and AI and technology, having your IT background as well?
Sports Geek is a sports digital agency that I founded 16 years ago now. Before Sports Geek, I was just a regular geek. So I was a coded developer for many years, sort of working in the application development space, but always a big sports fan and always thought there was opportunities in the sports side of things on how they were leveraging technology, and how they were communicating with fans. And so when I started, I thought I'd be, I guess, assisting in that same sort of space. I'd worked on customer systems with electricity companies and casinos, and I thought I'd sort of be in that CRM space and sort of helping people better understand their data. But when I
Mhm.
started, the whole social media, I guess, evolution was happening. Teams were starting to figure out what Facebook was, how they could use Instagram. Twitter wasn't as toxic as it is now. And so that's where I found myself sort of going to sports teams and saying, you need a sports geek. You need someone that understands the tech and some of the platforms and what they're trying to do, but then also has the mind and the mindset of a fan. So it became a blend of understanding fans and the marketing side, but then also the geek side of me was, watching what Mr. Zuckerberg was doing and what they were doing at Twitter and where the platforms were going and the type of content that they were asking for, and so that helped me advise teams and leagues to say, this is what you should be doing on Facebook to reach these kind of fans. This is the type of things that they're looking for on Twitter, and so it enabled sports teams and leagues to sort of to build their own digital fan bases, to have that direct conversation with them. So when I started working with sports teams, there was job titles like webmaster, and someone was literally updating the website, and that's what they had. Whereas now they've got fully functioning digital teams, in some cases, dedicated videographer and video resources that are just working on vertical video. So to go from, no resources to full teams, it's been a pretty exciting, 15 years or so.
If you look back earlier in your career when you first were getting into it, I think the majority of revenue coming out of those companies that are running sports teams would be what, tickets for this at the stadium? I mean, is that basically where the majority of the revenue is coming from as compared to today when maybe the fan base is obviously much bigger online than it is
Yep.
physically in stadium?
Yeah, so I mean, sports is pretty much fueled by three revenue streams. Media rights is the biggest one. So what TV pays for access to the rights, and that's still the one that bolsters most things. Then the second one would be what you would just discuss there, ticketing and membership. So getting the cheeks on the seats, as you will, and that was sort of one of our initial efforts to go, how do we make sure the digital fans either are turning up or want to turn up and become a ticket buyer and start that conversion conversation. So how do we get them into our own database? How do we get them into a CRM? But how do we start commercializing them? And then the last one is sponsorship, whether that's jersey patches, signage on the ground, or activations that you might do. And so again, that's another part that digital offers, because you start having a large audience and an audience that potentially is filled with customers of phone companies or car brands that want to use that as a channel. So now sports have built out those assets, those audiences. There's opportunities to commercialize that and work on campaigns to say, how can you talk to our fans about your offer? How can you do it in a non-silly way? How can you be a partner with the club? And that's sort of how digital to dollars has evolved. You need to build out your audience, understand your platforms and what you can provide, and then and then work with the sponsor to say, well, this is how you integrate it into our digital ecosystem.
And it doesn't just go for teams, right?
Yeah, that's a trend we've seen over the last 15 years. The sort of the move of what, leagues are still very powerful, teams are very powerful, but I guess the digital athlete, the fact that the athlete can now have its own, have their own one-to-one conversation with fans, and we see the big numbers, especially in the football transfer market. When Ronaldo moves from one team to another team, you see all the social channels rise because people will follow them. The NBA is another one like that. We've sort of seen LeBron move from team to team. And he, it's now at a point where the players have more followers than teams. So the balance has shifted a little bit. And so there is a little bit of awkwardness in getting the team and an athlete working together. But I'm sort of the belief of rising tides lift all boats, and they're bringing more eyeballs to the game.
I would almost draw a comparison with people that are working in corporate environments, right? They would obviously have their brand that's associated with the company they work for, but people in their careers are always switching companies as well, much like
Yep.
an athlete potentially switching teams. So how important is it for an individual person who's building out their career today, to actually have their own brand, their own online presence?
Super critical. I think that was one of my early advantages. Being in IT, I was sort of always leaning into platforms early, and one of the first platforms I was on was LinkedIn. And so in my former life in the IT space, I was leaning into that as a platform. I guess aha moment with LinkedIn was I was working and managing a large development team at a company that was going, and the whole team was going to get outsourced. So if you've ever been through that environment, it's not a great environment. But one of the things that I did do is I said, look, we all know we're all going to be somewhere else. Let's all connect on LinkedIn. Let's all make sure the 300 of us are all connected on LinkedIn, because we never know where we'll be. We all know we'll be somewhere else, but we never know where we'll be down the track. And the network effect of that, and I guess the mind shift change for a lot of people in LinkedIn when early days, it was like, oh, hang on, do I know Sean? Have we met? I'm not sure. I'll click I don't know, to a bit more open networking, to saying, hey, we're both interested in the same things, or we're both in the same field, or I'm interested in your work. Then you can build out your network. And so I'm still getting, 20 years later, I'm still getting occasional pings from people I used to work with saying, hey, do you know someone here? I'm looking for a job. So that's super valuable. But then from a sports business point of view, I use LinkedIn to make a lot of inroads into the US and the European sports market. It enabled me to reach out to people, reach out to executives, book them for the podcasts, meet them at conferences, and I've been lucky enough to work with them by using that. So LinkedIn's a really great example. I always give the advice of always be using LinkedIn. Don't just be the person that uses LinkedIn when they get the sack and they're now looking for work. If you're always active on LinkedIn, your boss can't complain that, hey, it looks like you're spruiking and trying to get your next job. But if you've got your own personal brand out there, hey, here's the success I'm doing, here's my opinion on the latest trends, then people get to know you. And we sort of know that 80% of the job market never gets advertised. So you sort of got to have your name out there and be engaging with people to, and LinkedIn's, since Microsoft took it over a couple of years ago, I think LinkedIn is an amazing platform from a professional and a corporate point of view.
As you said, rising tide lifts all boats, right? People share
Yep.
interest and they help each other out, regardless if you're working for the same company or not. When you have new athletes who are coming up, maybe it's a generational thing. I'm not sure. I'm a bit on the older side, the Gen X side. They're more digitally savvy, I would say, when you're younger. And people
Yep.
are a little bit more hesitant. I find when I'm talking to people that are a little bit older, say, more than 40, 50s, they think maybe it's too late to kind of go online and build their presence. And um, you're not 20 years old. So, obviously you started earlier
Mm.
and you've got 400 episodes. There's a lot of content you're creating. It seems quite overwhelming to some to say, oh, well, how would I be able to, create my own podcast and generate all this content? And I tell them that, today you have digital employee, you have a digital assistant, it's AI.
Yep.
How do you use AI in your content creation processes that helps you kind of have a bigger footprint than just yourself and your team?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much like what I've done over the past, 15 years, is always look for tools that can help maximize what I want to do. So I've been a bit of a productivity geek and looking at tools. And so That's always been, and that's just a geeky nature. I like to tinker and figure out how things work and how I can maximize them. And so, whether it's our content workflow or the podcast production workflow, we've over the last 2 years, we've really lent into both AI and automation to assist my producer. And so I have a digital producer that produced the podcast, and I had a really open discussion. I said, look, you're doing a terrific job, doing a lot of it manually. I want you to come along this journey, and we're going to replace a lot of these steps with AI and automation. I'm not going to replace you. It's just going to allow you to do more things. And so we build out some workflows that tap into automations using N8N to do our podcast research. So at the moment, as an example, I get a name and I get a LinkedIn URL, and I say, cool, approved. And then the workflow goes off. It goes to Perplexity, does a whole big web research. It goes to a web crawler to scan the LinkedIn profile, and then sends it both to an LLM and says, what should be the themes of the podcast? What should be the interview questions? What are things that are interesting? And when I start my research, I'm starting at 80% done. So I can look over it and go, oh, I'm going to talk to Tom about this and about this. So that's, shortened that piece of research, both from my side and from a producer side. And then from a production point of view, like once I've done the interview, and like yourself, I use Riverside, I take the transcript, and then I start saying what should be in the show notes, what should be the social asset, and we build our recipes on the things that we want. And so now we just have a production package that we're literally picking up and sort of fast tracking some of that work. So that's sort of our content workflow. And we do the same with the work that we do with clients. If there's something that we find we're doing it repeatedly, how can we use AI? I've been lucky enough to I built some Slack bots that sit in our Slack that do things like, check a graphic and make sure it's factually correct. Because we've got data in the back end that says, here's where the game's on, here's what the time zone is, here's the broadcasters. So we can say, is this graphic correct? And it goes and checks our database, says, oh, yes, it's right. Oh, actually, the time zone's wrong. That needs to be fixed. So it gives us another set of eyes from a process point of view. And I just really enjoyed, getting into the process and figuring out how I can use it.
So for those who are not from maybe more of a technical or IT background, let's say, I've been in the industry as well for quite a long time. To take that use case, for example, that you just
Yep.
gave, how much time does that save you from doing it manually? Just to give people a sense of the actual savings.
I think it's probably saving me 2 or 3 hours a week. And then it's probably saving my producer 5 to 10 hours a week. So they're able to increase their throughput. Like where previously they were doing, 5 or 6 pieces of content, they now be able to produce 9 to 10 pieces of content per episode as an example. And so that's just, giving uplift. And that's where I think there's a lot of options of how you can put those steps in. The sort of the holy grail, or the other bit of testing that I've been doing, you spoke about rapid rundown, is building that so to produce a daily podcast. And so for many years, I was curating news and articles that I think are interesting for my audience. And I did that manually, things that I would find interesting on Twitter and things that I would find interesting on LinkedIn. I found that because Twitter has sort of got worse, and that curation problem's been a bit hard. I'm finding a lot of people don't share as much. You were sort of talking before about a lot of people don't share. So I was actually having a hard time finding some of that content. So I built an engine that went and found the content. I went and said, go find me all the best articles in the sports business, sports technology, and geeky sort of nature that I like. And so now I've got a system that does that. It pulls 200 odd articles a day into a database that I can scan. But I don't want to scan it. And so the next thing is, I said, cool, bring me the best 20 links. And so now it sends me the best 20 links in an email that I literally, review, and then I look at the articles, so I'm keeping up to date. But then I hit publish on a blog post, and another automation kicks up, reads the articles that I've tagged, writes a script, and then it records the Sports Geek Rapid Rundown, which is a daily podcast, using a cloned version of my voice. So just before I jumped on here, I literally took 5 minutes to review the draft email that came through, and I hit publish, and I'll get a ping later that the podcast got released. And it's only a 4-minute podcast, Um, but I didn't have to
Mhm.
stop and record it. I didn't have to write a script for it. And so now that's a 5-minute job a day for a daily podcast. But if I was doing it manually, it would be a 2 to 3. I might get it down to an hour a day, but it's probably 2 hours a day of researching and things like that. So that's just been a fun hobby project to do to sort of show how it can be used. And so now I'm in the process of productizing that to effectively say, do you want a regular podcast that it does
Mhm.
news in your industry? I know that I've got the systems now to be able to build that out.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. Last night alone, I was so I've recently connected with people at Mind Studio, which is similar
Hmm.
to like a N8N or a Make.com. And last
Yep.
night, in fact, part of a recent boot camp I was going through was having to build an agent that takes all of the newsletters that you might forward to this agent, does a digest, looks for the most important points, and generates exactly that sort of thing. So yeah, you're on the same. You're well ahead of where I am at the moment. That I love the thinking. There's a lot of experimentation going on, especially like I
Yep.
work with corporate and enterprise customers quite a lot. And there's a lot of experimentation, but there's also this, question of are we getting return on investment? And which kind
Yep.
of maybe stifles a little bit of the innovation. And they also worry a bit about the governance and the privacy and all of the considerations around data sovereignty and the rest. But I said, people have to start like it is like a superpower. What you just
Mm.
described is saving incredible amounts of time and hours for people.
Yep.
So they have to dive into it, but not every experiment's going to work. So I think it takes a bit of a mindset shift. You have to like just look at your own process and say, what do I do repetitively that I feel could be done a lot faster? Or maybe people don't realize that these things are actually possible. So I love that you shared that,
That's the
there's
that's the thing.
real
I mean, one
actual
of the thing,
game. uh,
yeah, that's the thing that I guess impart to my clients and my staff. Like, is there stuff that you find yourself repeating doing that you don't like doing? Let us know. Tell us how to do it. Like, tell us what it is, because now you can automate that in some way. And some of it will just be low code, easy automation that's far easier to do. You don't have to employ the developer to do it. And some of it is using AI. And some of it is like, oh, here's this data. Can you please make this a nice looking email that says this? Oh, yes, I can. And that's how my podcast invites go out. Does all the research. It says, cool, write the email to the guests. It writes the email. It sits in my draft. I just look it over and closely, more and more, I'm not editing it. And it's not all the AI's work. It's the work I've done to say, please mention this. Make sure you mention this. Please use my tone. Please use Australian spelling. All of those things that still,
uh,
makes it sound like it comes from me, because that would always be something that's like, oh, I've got to invite some more people. I've got to start writing that email from scratch. And that was the bit that was tough, and that was the bit that was annoying. So that's the bit that I went to solve. So yeah, so those kind of things, those tasks you dread, they're the ones you tackle first, and then it frees you up to do some cool stuff.
I heard something online just yesterday. It says if you're in the process and everything needs to be approved by you or done by you to make the process continue, you're actually the bottleneck. So,
Yep,
can you remove yourself from the process and automate it in a way that you're getting, faster output or a better return on your investment because you're no longer holding things up. You could be sleeping, and like you said, this podcast could be being created automatically using your voice
yep,
and even maybe soon your likeness as well,
yep. Oh, well,
with all
that's
the
yeah. I
video
haven't
kind of
I haven't gone
avatar
down that
thing.
path yet, but it's
Uh,
very doable, and it's on my to do list. But yeah, that
yeah,
piece of it, yeah, you don't need to do all the work, but you can be the human in the loop. So I think there's real
yeah,
validity in you're building all this thing, and someone checks it, and you're signed it off, and so you're doing 2 to 5 minutes work rather than 45 minutes work, but you're doing the quality control. I think that's really
mhm.
important.
Starting with like an internal process is probably better to because if you're a
Yep.
bit worried out there that you're gonna impact your customer experience, like thinking about what do you do internally that's just very repetitive and not really strategic. It's something that's could probably be done by somebody who has just hired an intern. Think about it that way. Yeah, could I train a new employee to do this in a way that's going to be repetitive and understand? But you have to know how to ask the AI and how to prompt it
Yep.
properly or give it the right command. I think that's a bit of a learned skill, but also you can use AI to help you. to say, how can I
You,
improve this instruction? How do I improve the prompt?
you
So I think it's
can.
a
I
bit
think,
of,
yeah.
I think you make
I think the other thing is also like if someone said, "Hey, go build a daily podcast," like it took 6 weeks for me, and it was staged, so it
right.
was like, can I produce an email that's readable that makes sense? And that was just internal, and that was
Mhm.
just getting sent to me, and then I started sending it to clients. Then I said, well, then oh cool, now can I write a script? What's the script going to look like? And every day we would review the script and we would review the script and then we would check what the audio said and check. And so, and then once you start getting comfortable with it, you go, oh, cool, that step now works. I'm going to the next step. So if you try to build out something really big, really quickly, like building any system, you don't know where it's breaking. So sort of doing those small things and getting those small wins, but then stacking them is the key.
Do you think that's a better approach than trying to map out the whole flow first? Or do you think it's
Well,
better just look for that
you
next
can map
step
out the
that
whole flow, but you want to say, we want to hit this milestone. We want to be able to do this bit. Um, and then we want to go, oh, then we want to be able to do this bit. So, example of a project we're currently working on, my spreadsheet was getting updated. Every time the spreadsheet got updated, someone would go to the spreadsheet, grab the fields and write an email. And we're like, cool, that process is
Mhm.
working, but it's a bit manual. So what we'll do is we'll build
Yes.
something that starts building out a draft. And does our draft match your draft? And we'll run them together, and they'll be still doing the manual way. And then eventually we'll go, oh, let's go to the automated way. You're now a checker of the automation, not writing it. And so that kind of steps to say, hey, we're not going to turn one off and turn the other one on. We're going to build this, and you're going to be testing it as you're still doing your job every day. And then eventually, when we all
Mm.
get comfort in it's working, it will be completely automated. But again, a stage bit might be, we're just going to put the emails into a Google Doc and see if it looks okay. And then, oh, they're just going to be sitting in draft in the inbox. And then, oh, we're going to hit send. So it's that sort of stage process rather than saying we're going to build it all, because you don't like when you first start, you don't know what's going to be produced, and you want to be able to put in those checks and balances.
And human and machine kind of combination, continuous improvement, and having that open mindset to just keep iterating until you get it right. I just wanted to ask, in the sports area where you work, I know 3
Mm-hmm.
years is probably too long, maybe it's more of a year. What do you think is gonna be that next breakthrough with AI in either the fan experience or in monetizing kind of sports in general?
I think most of it will be unseen. Like it will be increased workflows and teams producing more stuff. I think there'll be potentially maybe some assistance in the ticketing space with AI. Potentially, like there's lots of clunky parts of the ticketing process that AI, whether it's a chatbot or whether it's I want to call, that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot in, and again, sports no different. Like it's customer relationship management. So if you're a member of a team, it makes sense to be having a membership agent that can talk to you, that knows all your records, and that can solve 80% of your things without having to go to a membership staff. So those kind of things, they're not unique to sport. It's just that they've got, big audiences, but they've got, banks have
Mm,
got big audiences and telcos have got big audiences as well, of customers as well. So I think it is applying some of the best of those to the world of sport. And then we might get some of the more crazy stuff that's more consumer
mm,
facing and those kind of things. But we'll get things like, you're clicking through a store on the NBA and you like that jersey and you'll click the button and it'll show you exactly what that jersey looks like on you, using Google Nano and your face, and you'll see what the fit looks like. That, sport will adapt what the best of other industries do, whether it be retail, e-commerce, experience, that kind of stuff. I think we'll see a lot of AI stuff in experiences. You walk up to a booth and you'll hit a button and then, you'll get a branded piece of digital content that, has you all branded up for the game. I think we'll see
mhm.
more of that kind of stuff.
Well, excellent. Thank you for giving us a perspective on what we might see coming in sports and, for the conversation today. I encourage everybody to check out Sports Geek and also your daily Sports Geek Rapid Rundown, which we now know is automated and, based on your voice. And so, appreciate the time, Sean, and look forward to reconnecting very soon.
No worries, Sean. Thanks for having me on.